All right, friends, get your stones ready because I'm about to be controversial. We're going to be talking about the issue with woke, as in wokeism. But before you jump to conclusions, please hear me out. I'm not here to create drama. And while the title of this video is definitely not clickbait, I do not believe in being controversial for controversial's sake or for engagement. My goal is to build bridges, always. That is my activism. I do absolutely not want to deepen divides. I want to foster understanding. Welcome to the Daily Quaker. Here we embrace the spirit of loving our neighbors, living out our truth and faith in daily life, and exploring the world through a Quaker and early Christian lens. If that speaks to your condition, please consider subscribing to this channel and hit that little Liberty bell down there so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Plus, it really supports this channel. Also, a quick note here. The thoughts that I share here are my own. I do not represent all Quakers. We are a diverse group with many, many branches. And even within those branches, no two Quakers are alike. As we like to say, if you've met one Quaker, you've met one Quaker. Actually, that's what I like to say. I've never actually heard other Quakers say that. So I'm speaking for myself. But if you're a Quaker and you agree with that, let me know in the comments section. Okay, as a Quaker, my goal is to contribute to community and peace. That means seeking common ground and fostering true understanding whenever that's possible. Because real connection is a two-way street, and it's built on kindness and honesty. Never has that been more important than today. Well, that's not exactly true. It's always important. Honest connection is always important. It's not a cure-all or a bandage on a problem. It's a lifestyle. We live in uncertain times right now, but that can actually be a blessing because it means we have an opportunity to create meaningful change and strengthen our spiritual perseverance and mental fortitude. We can learn to become bigger than our problems. I always say that the revolution will be internalized because we need to start with ourselves, changing our own behavior, choosing love-driven, intentional action instead of reacting in fear. Fear is a terrible compass that will get you lost at sea. Originally, I planned to start this channel with a Quaker 101 overview, but I've decided to weave that into conversations instead, creating more of an immersive experience. There's lots of Quaker 101 platforms out there, and I will leave links to them below if you just want something more straightforward. I also want to explore early Christianity because that aligns most with my own Quaker beliefs, and that is also what George Fox and other founders of Quakerism envisioned. Anyway, this space is open to anyone who approach with curiosity and kindness. Whether you're a Quaker or another kind of faith by action, love thy neighbor, Sermon on the Mount sort of Christian. Or maybe you're just someone who's seeking meaningful dialogue. You know, if you come here with respect, you are definitely welcome. So today's topic, wokeism. Wokeism through the lens of Quaker testimonies. If you consider the Quaker testimonies, which are modern guiding principles and mostly used by liberal Quakers, and you can remember those testimonies by the acronym SPICES. So it's SPICES: simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and stewardship. So if you consider those, you'll see that this conversation isn't about attacking anyone. I promised. It's about alignment. Community, in the case of this topic, community, we're talking about deepening relationships through an open discussion. Integrity, moving beyond confirmation bias and exploring maybe some uncomfortable truths. Peace, building bridges, improving conversations and minimizing fear, since most violence seems to stem from division and fear. Equality, extending empathy to everyone, and ensuring that all voices matter, which is the foundation of democracy, which also means encouraging people to join the conversation and initiate new ones and providing a safe and listening space for diversity of thought. Stewardship, taking responsibility for the wisdom, care, and accountability we bring to our social and spiritual lives. Kind of leaning a little bit more towards conservative Quakerism. They use an acronym called STEP: Simplicity, Truth, Equality, and Peace. It's more aligned with Quaker origins, and it's just simpler. I mean, I just like things to be really simple because I tend to get distracted when there's too many things going on. But that's another conversation for another time. Okay, so where is integrity in today's conversations? Some conversations really need to be happening, especially those that make us uncomfortable. We need to be talking about what we observe versus what we're being told. We need to break away from groupthink and fear, and we need to seek truth, even when it's inconvenient or scary. Which brings me to the question of the day. Does woke truly extend empathy to everyone? On the surface, being woke is about social awareness and advocating for marginalized people, and that is a beautiful thing. That is such a good thing. But in practice, it often demands ideological purity, punishing those who express any kind of nuance or step outside of the script. While advocating for justice is essential, rigid beliefs and dehumanizing those who disagree with you is something totally different altogether. More and more, woke has become less about compassion and more about exclusion. And that's been really damaging. It's created an equal and opposite reaction. The movement has become so extreme and at times so intolerant that it's become a straw man for the opposition to rally against. And speaking of opposition, things have gone off the rails when Andrew Tate, self-proclaimed misogynist and alt-right poster boy, is being rejected by the far right on X because of his mixed race. It's not just extreme, that is Nazi-level insanity. Okay, let's talk about the loss of nuance and the rise of hierarchical victimhood. I've noticed a rise in people identifying with protected class statuses. Like, I've been noticing this for years. Autism, ADHD, certain identities. Neurodiversity absolutely deserves more understanding and support. I belong in this group. But are some people using these identities as social armor? Because in certain spaces, identity becomes a shield against critique, a way to deflect challenges to an argument. That's not true inclusion. That is hierarchical victimhood. It creates a dynamic where some people are beyond reproach, whereas others are disposable. That's not justice. That's just a new form of social stratification. And I also worry about self-limiting identities. And struggles become a defining feature rather than a challenge to overcome. That's not empowering. Which brings us to effective activism versus cathartic activism. Are we engaging in effective, results-driven activism? Because activism should be intentional. Just feeling righteous doesn't mean that you're making an impact. Shaming people for having different opinions is not activism. It's just a purity test. Too often, discussions get derailed by pedantic arguments and emotional tirades. And instead of changing minds, we just create more division and we cast it in stone because that's what emotion does. So it's really important that we're very mindful in how we approach this, because the goal is not to validate our identity. The goal is to make something real happen, to make real change happen. Yes, there's a kind of a radical way to do things, using shame and pressure and social stigma and all of that. That's a very fear-driven approach. And I'm going for a more love-driven approach because I feel that we really need to just start working on division and kind of come together, because we have a lot of common ground, actually. The problems that we face, the real problems that we face them together. Like, for example, we're coming into an age of neo-feudalism and techno-oligarchs, and this is, and they're dividing us along some pretty random lines, to be honest, and they're making us respond and react all the time and distracting us from the thing that we actually have in common, and that is that we are all in the shadow of this technocracy. I'm going off script right now, but one of the issues that I have, because I know that there is no government where we're not going to be governed by something. We're always going to be governed. There's always going to be parameters. There's always going to be laws and rules. And we can never get rid of that. I know people are always like, I want freedom, I want freedom. Well, they don't really define for themselves what that freedom is. They just want freedom. They just don't want to be surveilled or, I don't know what it is, but because it's different for each individual. I want freedom too. I want to be mentally free. I don't want anybody jacking with my mind, through psychological hacks. That's important. So I kind of resist marketing and propaganda and disinformation. I really try hard to sift through that all, because I really want to be mentally free. The other thing where I want freedom is I want the freedom to be a good person and to live a purposeful life. I want to be able to live in a moral way. And this society, like the way that it's structured, especially, with all the corporatism or whatever you want to call it, corporate oligarchs, the consumerism and the fear-drivenness of it all, and the greed and the transactional society, and just the division that has occurred between, the sexes, all of that is not a morally healthy society. And it's really hard to thrive in it without kind of being a little corrupt yourself. And I want freedom. I want freedom to just be a good person. I want that opportunity. I want to be able to be a moral person with a purpose. I want to love my neighbors. and I want to seek truth and peace and all of that. And, it's a little tough. It's a little tough in the social environment because it's not driven on those things. The social environment is driven on basically the 7 deadly sins. And I want freedom from that. I want freedom, just to be a good person. That's it. Can I have an amen? All right. So I know I just kind of went a little off script. Okay, so I'm going to share a story about a few conversations that I had with some people who are very, very woke. And they accused me of picking on people because I was trying to engage them in a thoughtful discussion. I tend to be pretty blunt. And I don't waste a lot of time on social niceties. And that might be a problem because I don't set the scene right. I think those social niceties are extraneous because, of course, I love you. I mean, and that should be a given. I don't know. I wish people understood that I'm not ever, at least that I'm trying not to judge them. And I come kind of with an open heart. And to always have to preface that, feels like a waste of time for me. I'm sorry. So that might be kind of the problem right from the get-go, is that I have a very terse approach. But anyway, so when I'm in a conversation with someone and I'm trying to keep up this meaningful dialogue that's based on, reaching some kind of truth. I don't want to be right. I don't care if the other person is right. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to, affirm myself. I'm trying to affirm the truth. But when other people oftentimes can't keep up with the conversation, they sometimes resort to vicious or veiled ad hominem attacks. For example, I advocate for a whole food plant-based diet, and I do it for the animals, but I also do it for health. And I've been accused of judging the poor just for saying that avoiding ultra-processed food is good for longevity. And so since when is sharing evidence-based health information an act of cruelty? I've also been accused of prioritizing animal welfare over somebody's, it's going to sound snarky, but somebody's hurt feelings. And honestly, they're right. I do. I will always prioritize someone's right to existence over someone's feelings. That just seems to be the right priority to me. But here's the thing. We all have our own battles to fight. And so it's unfair to demand that someone abandon theirs in favor of yours. So lastly, the question that we need to ask when we engage in any conversations, even whether it's even for a good cause or not, and that is, are we moving in love? So let's bring this back to Quakerism and really to anyone who believes in love-driven activism and ask ourselves these questions. Are we moving in love? Are our actions love-driven? And when I mean love-driven, I kind of mean the opposite of being fear-driven. Are we doing this because we're afraid of being judged, or we're, afraid of something? Or are we doing it because we believe in something and we think this is an important conversation? Are we listening? Are we listening wholeheartedly? Are we formulating a response while the other person is speaking? Or are we listening to each and every word? Because radical things happen when you just listen. If you just completely listen to them and let them get it all out, they often say something different than what you anticipated. But if you're not listening to them and you interrupt them, that's kind of bouncing the words back to them. They become reactive and they don't get to actually say everything that's on their heart. And you get a completely different conversation. Also, when you're listening with an open heart, you're not listening with the intention to judge. You're just listening. You put your judgments aside and you kind of, maybe even try to put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes I say that, listening with the intention of wanting to be convinced, but that gets a lot of flack from people because it sounds, I guess, naive. It sounds like you're not thinking critically. So that's not really what I kind of do that. I actually, when I want to learn something or when I want to listen to something, I actually listen with the, as if I'm into it as much as they're into it, because I want to understand. I want to understand where they are coming from. I'm not really prone to zealotry. I've never have been. I don't think I could ever be in a cult. Maybe you think I'm in a cult right now, but maybe you're laughing at me. But I don't think I could ever be in a cult because I'm just not prone to falling into that kind of just, I'm always questioning. I never, ever, it's just not in my nature, just to wholeheartedly, just believe in all the tenets of one faith or another, or politics, or, like a story, a news story, like any of that. I'm always like wondering, what are they not saying? So I tend to be kind of pretty cynical, I guess. So in are we creating space for transformation? Like if you just come at someone with all your emotion and your ad hominem attacks, you're pushing them out. You're forcing them to dig their heels in. What you need to be doing is creating a welcoming space and room and space for them for both of you to seek common ground. Like it can't be a threatening space. It can't be a space that like denies them their humanity or their identity or anything about them. It can't deny them at all. It's got to see them. You got to create a space that makes them feel like they're being seen and listened to. And then the last question is, or are we just reacting and drawing more lines in the sand and pushing people away? I mean, how many lines have been drawn in the sand? It's all this infighting and outfighting and everything. And the sands, they're like corduroy now. Okay. All in all, justice is absolutely necessary. But exclusion, purity tests, and social punishment are not the way to achieve it. So going forward, let's make sure that our activism is about real change, not just reinforcing our identity. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on all this. So please, let's keep this conversation going in the comment section with honesty and empathy. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. And don't forget to hit that like button, and I will see you in the next video.